Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whitepod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at White Labs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And my today's special guest is co-founder and CEO of Goldcast, tailored B2B events platform that transforms marketing through the effortless hosting and engaging digital or in-person events. Actually, a big welcome to you, Palash, and I'm so happy to have you with me.
I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. Let's start with your journey, Plash. Would love to know about your early days here in India and how exactly Harvard and Goldcast happened.
Yeah, I'm happy to take you through that, Harshit. I was trained as an engineer in one of the engineering institutes in India, IIT Kanpur, and after that, I started my career in manufacturing actually. So for a
Yeah.
CPG firm called ITC, which is like P&G or Unilever in the US, and there I spent some 3 years in manufacturing, and I realized that while manufacturing is exciting, the real business of CPG is in marketing, right? Marketing is what drives that whole business. And so I got intrigued by it and I wanted to learn more about marketing. And as a techie, how does one get into marketing? I started thinking about it. And that took me to this company called Inmobi, which is an ad tech, martech company
Yep.
based out of India and one of the SoftBank funded large tech companies that came out of India. So I joined that company in 2015 in what is now called customer success. And I spent the first 2 years there in different business roles, right? Starting from customer success and then the next 2 years in product management. And I learned a lot about everything in ad tech and martech, right? So how B2B businesses work, how ad tech works. And I learned a lot about that whole universe, right? And it was very
Yep.
eye-opening for me and I loved it. And I'd always in throughout this time wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? And while I was at Inmobi, I used to travel a lot, but as a PM, I always felt that I was two steps behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the product needed to be where we needed to be because we were very far removed from our customer, right? It was not
Yep.
just the physical distance because our core markets were in the US, in Europe, but also we were not in the thick of things, right? We were always trying to guess where the market was going to be. We were not skating to where the puck was going to be, right? I thought that to build a great company, I needed to be in the US. And so that motivated me to come to the US. And the CEO of Inmobi was an HBS alum. So he
Oh,
volunteered to write me a recommendation. So that's how I ended up in HBS.
oh, that's brilliant. Okay, can you please tell us a bit more about Goldcast? Because to be honest, like Goldcast focuses on virtual events and webinars. Can you please just explain us like how exactly this platform differs from the traditional webinar solutions altogether? What is the unique value proposition here?
Yeah, definitely heard it. So Goldcast is a B2B events platform. That's how we position ourselves. And to understand how we differ, we have to start with who we cater to, right? And our target persona is a B2B marketing team that's using the product to run events, to generate pipeline for and build brand and generate pipeline for their business, right? And to provide data and generate actionable insights for their sales teams, right? So that is the value prop of Goldcast. And to do that, the product is built to do a few things that are very different from what the rest of the market can do, right? So the number one thing is that Goldcast can do everything right from what is traditionally called a webinar, right? Which is a single session, 30 to 45 minute, 1 hour session, right? All the way up to a very complex multi-day, multi-track virtual conference, right? So if you look at when this market became hot in 2020, early 2020, every product was built for the extreme of what I'm talking about, right? Which is the big conferences, right? So no one was anchored towards what a lot of B2B marketers need, which is a lot of repeatable events, what they want to do, right?
Yep.
In product launches, demand gen type of thought leadership events, customer trainings, customer webinars, all of those kind of things, right? And marketers wanted a single platform in which they can do all of this so that it's easy for them to operate, because marketing teams are small, right? They're generally small. They want to be able to operate from a single platform. The second value prop for all of this was the platform is extremely brandable, right? So if you go to an Adobe event that's running on Goldcast, it will look like Adobe. If you go to a GitHub event that's running on Goldcast, it will look like GitHub, right? And the product is very brandable without needing CSS or HTML. The marketers can themselves do it using the product itself. And that sounds easy in practice, but it's very hard to replicate for competitors because we built it that way. And the brandability is very core to what marketing teams want.
Sure.
The third part is, and which is very connected to how what I talked about in the first point, which is marketers want one platform for everything, is the measurability and ROI aspect of all of this. So half of our platform is built like a MarTech tool. The core value prop here is that marketers are ultimately doing all of this to generate pipeline, right? Get data and insights about what the marketing activities. You would know that, right? As a marketer yourself, right? So that is what we got right. So a lot of our platform is all about data, insights, analytics, getting the workflows around events, right? What has happened inside the event? How can I get data from who attended my event? How that impact the pipeline that is generated from the event in 3 months and 6 months? How can I connect to Salesforce, Marketo, HubSpot? And we have invested a lot of time, effort in making sure that all of that is 10x better and deeper than anything that exists in the market. And that's the secret sauce of why the product is so sticky and valuable to marketers, because that part is almost like a market product. And that helps the marketing teams ultimately prove the value of their event programs and get a seat at the table, right? That they are generating value for the organization. So those are the three key value props. And if you look at all these three, they don't exist in a single platform. Some products, they do webinars, but they only do webinars and they're just too simple for a bigger company to operate. And some people do virtual events, but they're too horizontal, right? And they're focused on everyone and not just the marketer. And some are poor in terms of data. So there's everything that is missing. And we got these three things right. That is what the marketer cares about. And that's what differentiates and makes us good and unique.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'll dig deep into these value propositions for sure in the coming few questions. But yeah, let's direct this conversation to COVID-19. A lot of things changed. And to be honest, the virtual experience, that landscape changed to a whole new level altogether at that time. How exactly Goldcats actually adapted to it and facilitated it altogether? That
Yeah,
era.
so we actually started in 2020 May. That's when we decided to found the company. The idea for Goldcast came in when COVID had become something, right? It did not become, we didn't know that the entire world will be locked down, but we knew that at that time there was something happening in March and April of 2020, sorry. And so we didn't have to adapt. We were built for the digital first.
Let's talk about some of the key features and capabilities that Goldcast basically offers for event organizers and how these features basically enhance the attendees' experience altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the features for organizers, it broadly falls into these buckets, right? So the things that we take care of is that we want to always be mindful of who our customer is, right? And our customers are marketing teams in companies with more than 500 employees, right? So that's when Goldcast starts becoming valuable and super sticky. And marketing teams in those companies are still smaller. So it's not that they are the marketers. They're still smaller, but they have a big audience, and then they have a big pipeline goal on their head, and they have a lot of events, right? A big events program. And so what do they need? They need a way to run events repeatably, right? And run very different kind of events. So a few features that help them do that is we have a concept of templates. So marketers can come in and they can create a branded template in the product. This is how the different types of events will look like. This is how, say, my coffee chat will look like. This is how my customer trainings will look like. This is how my product launches will look like. This is how my quarterly conference will look like. They do it once and then they can just copy that template into events over and over and be done with it. And we have an implementation team that helps them set up that template. So we do that for the customers also a few times. So that is number one. The second thing is that they can create series of events. So if you are doing, say, a product demo, right? And say Notion is a customer of ours, right? And they are a customer and they do product demos every week, right? And they want people to be able to come and select what they will attend. Say they want to do it, they want to attend a demo this week or next week or the 3 weeks after, they can do it in one page. And this is complex orchestration that is hard to do on something like a Zoom. You cannot even do it on Zoom, right? Or Zoom webinar or the regular webinar product. And we make all of that happen in just a few clicks and you can transfer all of that data into Marketo and things like that. So the feature of doing an event series, we have made that easy. And then we have all the complicated features that we make it very easy to collect the data in forms, right? In registration, and then pass that on all to your marketing operation systems, right? Things like collecting all the user data about which company they are from, what is their preferences, what products they like, et cetera, and then map that all into downstream systems in fields, in Salesforce, in HubSpot, et cetera. We make all of that happen within the product itself. So those are some of the features for organizers. In terms of attendees, there is actually a lot of stuff, right? So the number one feature, I think, which has had a disproportionate benefit for our attendees and organizers both is the flow of how people get into a Goldcast event. So the moment you register for a Goldcast event, you get a calendar invitation right into your calendar. And inside the invitation itself, there is a link. And you click on that link, you directly get into the event. You never have to log in, create a password, do anything like that. And it's secure. It is SOC 2 compliant. It complies with every security regulation out there in the world. And we have made that happen in a way which is very hard to replicate. So if you reschedule an event, the calendar invite in all the registrants' calendar, that gets rescheduled. So we have made all of that cases work. And this ensures that your attendance rate is on Goldcast is 20 to 30% higher than any other platform. So that is number one. The second is that within the event itself, you can do everything within Goldcast itself, where you don't have to use any other tool like a Slido or Pigeonhole for engagement. So you can do polls, you can do Q&A, you can do surveys, you can do everything. You don't have to use SurveyMonkey, for instance. And people who do surveys on Goldcast, they get a 20 to 30x response rate on Goldcast. So for example, MailChimp is a customer, right? And they do surveys in our tool, right? And they get 20x survey responses on our product, right? Versus anything else that they use. That's one value prop. The third is that the product itself has built-in video production tools that make it look like it's a very highly produced show, even though it's just 2 or 3 marketers doing it on the back end, right? And you don't need a video producer. So you can do very cool things like put overlays and put your name cards and things like that. And you would know that as a podcast producer, right? How challenging it could be for people who don't know how to do that. And we make all of that happen in the stress of a live event. It's always just easy to use and it's easy to use for a 2 or 3 team of marketers. That's the feature number 3. And the final thing is all the boring but very important things in analytics and the downstream system. So we have a very robust Salesforce app, which can give you all the data of ROI, pipeline, etc., and out of the box reports that AEs can use and BDRs can use. And then we also have some very specific integrations for marketers, right? Like customer.io, we have a segment integration, we have Eloqua integration. These are all enterprisey kind of things. But because of our focus towards large enterprise marketing teams, we have all of those features that generally don't exist with other event platforms.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you did mention about security and data privacy, and like that's one of the major concerns, and specifically because your target market is enterprise. In that space, that is the most important thing. That's something that even I struggle whenever I'm working with some enterprise clients of mine. Tell me, like, how exactly do you guys, because you did mention that you do take care of mainly like every norm in there. Like, talking about that safety, how exactly like that happens, to be honest, on the platform?
Yeah, Harshit, that's a great question, and that's very important for our industry, right? Because events are very data heavy, right? We are collecting a lot of data for on behalf of our customers, and from the get go, the product is architected in a way where a customer's data is siloed for that customer itself, right? So any data that our customer collects for their attendees and registrants and everything else, it is just siloed for them, and we never cross pollinate it across
Hmm.
anyone else, right? That is core to the product's architecture, right? And so from the get-go, even we had SOC 2 compliance, I think 1.5 years back when the company was only 5 or 6 quarters old. And so we were able to do all of those kind of data privacy, GDPR, those kind of things, because we knew that if we are going to work with marketers, which was our core thesis of the company, right? We would need all of these things, right? They're very sensitive about data. They don't need the data to be shared between organizations or leaked out or things like that. We would need to build this into the product from the get-go. So the core insight we had was the data needs to be siloed, right? From the beginning. And we don't need to collect anything that looks like an advertising
Hmm.
data, right, or cookie, or we cannot use that data for anything that is advertising. So, for instance, a lot of our competitors, what they do is they would collect your data saying, oh, you attended event X for a company A, and let me show you other events of company B, which sort of looks like company A, right? And
Yeah.
that requires them to take consent from you, ask you for cookies and things like that. We don't do anything like that. If
Hmm.
you are attending an event from some company, then you are that company's property. We don't take any data from you that looks like an advertising cookie or anything like that, because we are just a product, right? We are just treat ourselves as a SaaS tool. We are not a horizontal events platform. We are not a marketplace. And so that's how we built the product. So we have very low footprint in terms of what data we take. And that has allowed us to be very quick in terms of getting all these certifications and be security compliant.
Okay. And tell me one more thing, because what I've experienced in past is basically enterprise clients are very hesitant when it comes to even convincing them, to be honest, that we will make sure that the security is top notch and your data is protected, all of those things. How do you tackle that problem, man?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a combination of two things, right? The number one thing is that you need certifications, right? Certification has become some kind of a must to get into enterprises, right? So we made sure we had that. Second is you still need some social proof, right?
Hmm.
To get into enterprises. And it's a chicken and egg problem, right? You need a couple of enterprise logos to get into, the next 10 enterprises. And so who are those two enterprises going to be? It's that typical startup hustle, right? Cold start problem. How do you find those early adopters within enterprises?
Yeah.
And what we have found out is that the within enterprises there are many very enterprising people also. And no pun intended, but we have had people who are so forward looking that they could even put startups to shame, and those have ended up becoming an enterprise customer. So for instance, like GitHub was our fifth customer actually, and over time it has expanded to become our largest customer now. And GitHub, for all practical purposes, is a large enterprise, right? We have Zuora as a customer, and Zuora was probably our 20th customer. It's a public company, right? And it's a very large customer. We have very deep in partnership with them. So we found out that it takes some time to find those people, right? But there are those people who will be willing to take a bet on upstarts. And then from there, it's just building that social proof and then going forward.
Yeah, that's right. And since you mentioned about ROI, and that is something that, again, in virtual events, it's quite challenging to basically track down ROI and even to monetize, to be honest. How exactly do you help in these scenarios? Like,
Yeah. Harshit, so one of the core reasons also why we go after B2B customers, like B2B marketers, and why we thought this was probably the only viable market in digital events was because we know, and I think everyone should have known, that it would not be long term possible to monetize
Mhm.
virtual events, right? Properly monetized, right? Via tickets and things like that. So even today, we don't have a proper ticketing feature on Goldcast. We can do ticketing, but it takes some effort to do that from our side, and we never invested in it as a core feature, right? The way we help customers prove ROI is through the engagement that they generate with their customers, right? So
Okay.
the events are a classic marketing activity in B2B marketing, right? It's like you're presenting content or you're presenting some piece of
Information.
content, right?
Yeah.
Information. And that depends on the context of the event, right? What it is. It could be a product demo, it could be a thought leadership, it could be anything, right? It could be people do very high touch ABM events where they have a wine tasting or things like that. And there's a collection of 30, 40 high touch VP level people who are on the other side. It depends very much on what that is, but it is ultimately some kind of engagement that's happening,
Hmm.
right, between the presenter and the audience. And that engagement is what generates value, right? And our goal of the product is to make that engagement happen and make it as engaging as possible. Take those signals and push it in system of records where you can make sense of those signals, right? And
Mhm.
and those engagement data points is what helps you derive what the ROI is, right? So, for instance, a lot of our customers track how many of their ICP or named accounts attended the events, right? And within
Yeah.
that, what seniority of titles attended, how much watched, how much sessions did they watch, how much did they actively engage, how much did they passively engage, and they lead score based on that. We provide all the signals for them to lead score. They put workflows on things that were engagements. So, for example, if someone went to a booth that hosted some specific white paper from that
Mhm.
customer, right? Then they could trigger a sequence, an email sequence that talks about more about that white paper, right? And maybe or an AE could follow up right after that. There's a lot of ways in which ROI could be generated from that, but ultimately it depends on what the company specific processes are. But it's a classic marketing activity in the end, right? The companies are never looking to charge people money off that. They are just looking for engagement, right?
Yep.
And then getting and measuring value out of that engagement.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right.
Yes.
It's been around 3.5 years now, right? Almost since you have launched the product. Let's talk about some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in building and scaling Goldcast, and how did you overcome those?
That's a great question. It that challenge always changes, Harshit, as the company is
Sure.
growing, and
Sure.
that challenge is different every quarter. But I think there are two challenges that at the stage that we are at right now, which is 120, 130 people and Series B ish kind of scale. The number one challenge is growing at this rate is that the growth playbook that works at say 1 million to 3 million doesn't
Okay.
exactly replicate from 3 million to 7, 8 million and doesn't replicate exactly from 7 to 12 million, right? And that challenge is harder when the efficiency benchmarks are changing
Hmm.
rapidly, right? So what used to be acceptable in the market last year is not acceptable anymore. And that is a symptom of the macro environment, right? And the interest rate environments and everything else. For good reasons. We all should be more efficient, but with changing expectations of how much can be spent on CAC, etc., the growth playbooks also changed.
Yep.
And deliver a 10 to $25 million growth is a very different ball game than 4 to 10 million, although the growth rate exactly looks the same. Excel file, it looks similar. So I think that's a big challenge. And I think every CEO at this stage will give you the same answer, right? So this is one. The second challenge is about remote, right? So we are a fully remote company. We were
Hmm.
born in remote era, and we have some concentration in Boston and Bangalore. Our leadership team is very concentrated in Boston, and then we have engineering concentration in Bangalore, but we are remote still, right? Very remote. And as the company grows, the challenge is how do you keep a remote team together every time? And together means how do you keep everyone aligned? How do you onboard people effectively? How do you train people fast? and effectively? How do you make them feel that we all are together in this? How do you keep the morale high? And some of these things, I think, take care of themselves in an office environment when people are coming together and they're working and seeing each other together. In remote, all of these things are non-obvious. And I think people got, and people, including myself and everyone else, during COVID, got very excited for a lot of right reasons that remote is working
Yep.
and then we should all commit to remote work, which I think remote is working. And I'm a big fan of remote. Right? I have 2 kids and I love being at home and being able to spend time with them while being a founder. But I think we still have a lot to discover as humanity on how to make remote work very effectively. And reading the 500-page playbook from GitLab is not the answer to that. We need something more palatable. And I think we need a class of professionals, maybe HR professionals or people professionals who can make that scale across different startups. So just scaling remote work is I would say, second
Biggest
close challenge that I have.
I think you're pretty much right on that front because, and that's one of the reasons I'm seeing trend that many companies have started at least hybrid now, and could be like the startups that have basically launched during COVID era altogether. Even they have started being switching to the hybrid solution where there are a few days office and then a few days work from home and stuff like that happening. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure people are still figuring it out how to tackle this and keeping the morale high altogether. Yeah. I think we're coming to a little bit of end here, and I would love to have some marketing conversation with you. I would love to know how exactly and what all things that have been working in your favor when it comes to your own B2B lead generation.
That's a great question, Rashid. So in terms of a lead gen, we eat our own dog food. Like we are very heavy on doing our own events, right? And our event program is community led, right? A lot of our content is very geared towards our own community of event marketers, right? And it's not just people who have the title of event marketers, right? But any marketer who uses events to do marketing, right? And that includes demand gen, product marketer, a lot of CESMs also, right? So that has worked a lot for us, right? And then we have been able to build a very nice, engaged community around it. We see people coming over and over again, and that drives a lot of secondhand virality for us as well. So a lot of success there. What we have learned in last 1 year is that in the early days, when it's just founder, right, and sub 1 million or 1 to 2, 3 million kind of scale, right, when there's early product market fit, I think it pays to invest in demand gen, right? Because the founder is driving the point of view, and then there's still early adopters who are buying your product. And so demand gen should scale on getting the demand, right? And then very quickly, there should be a shift to product marketing as you get into the late majority here, because we had, as people know how to use the product in different scenarios. But that was true for early adopters. But in our late customers, as we started getting scale above 100 customers, we discovered, and we are now also discovering slightly late, that it is not clear to a lot of our customers how to use the product beyond that one use case they bought it for. So now we are investing a lot in product marketing, like how to use the product exactly, right? And the what are the different use cases you use it for and things like that, which is very core, hardcore product marketing. So that is one subtle shift in how we are doing it. But the core channel still remains events. And we also invest a lot in in-person events. So a lot of our deal acceleration happens through in-person events, and we invite our customers and prospects who are already in pipeline in late stage conversations into in-person events that we do largely in larger US cities, right? Like New York, Boston, SF, Seattle.
Gotcha. And since you're keeping the community so engaged, I'm curious now, how's the churn rate for you?
I can not exactly give you the number, but our churn is, so our retention is one of the best in this industry.
Sure, because
But
in enterprise, anyways, that happens automatically, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
larger companies, it's good, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement here
Yeah.
as well. And that improvement would come from just being a lot focused on ICP. In the early days, we were still focused on companies slightly smaller in size, right? Like less than 200 people companies, and they have been hit a little harder by the the recession, right? The tech
Yep.
meltdown. So there's a higher churn in that cohort. But in our core cohort of 500 plus people companies, our gross retention is very, very solid.
It's hard to earn though such customers, but yeah, retention is not a problem, with them. I think we're coming to an end here, Palash. I would like to have a quick rapid fire with you. Are you ready for that?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. What habit holds you back the most?
Sleeping late at night.
Okay. Now,
Yes.
what subject do you find to be most fascinating?
Yes. Human evolution.
All right. Okay. What career did you dream of having as a kid?
As a kid, scientist.
Okay. All right. And coming to my very last question. What did you last search on Google?
Last search. It was about some travel.
Okay. And you hate traveling? No, you don't hate
Not
traveling, you hate booking. Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the time, all the knowledge that you have shared in this session. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Arshad. Thanks a lot, man. Very exciting talking to you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on the show.